not defending Dish here because I don't like Charlie Ergen, but I think that T-Mobile and the way they operated after the terms of the T-Mobile Sprint merger ended in 2021 kind of screwed Dish from the very beginning because the dealers started shutting down stores, the pricing wasn't good, they didn't have good roaming deals, their data prices for being on their networks went up, and they just made it super hard for Dish to succeed. You know, when you're one of the big three and you sell off a portion of your old business to a new company, in this case, Dish buying Boost, and you don't subsidize that sale by allowing access to your network at an affordable rate to that new carrier, you're kind of screwing them from the very beginning. So Dish was never set to be successful, in my opinion, either. And I think they will go bankrupt by the end of this year. It's going to take time, but I don't see them surviving into 2025, in my opinion.
Yeah, let me get you in this.
I have I have no contradicting opinions to everything that he just said. Dish is done. I'm not surprised.
Do you think it's a situation that the bleeding just went on for too long and it's just too little too late? Because we're seeing some positivity. Like without ACP, they were net positive. They were able to gain TV subs. They were actually raising some revenues off of their 5G network. Like those things happening in Q2 is meaningful because they never had those things before. So is it a situation where there was just no more losses to be had? Whoever was going to leave left, and whoever's staying is staying, and they might be adding a little bit here and there. But do you think it's just a situation of too little too late, or do you think they were just doomed from the start?
I've said it for years that they were doomed from the start, and they mismanaged their way through building that 5G network. They started off on a bad foot and then continued to stumble, and now they're falling. So I'm not surprised. Sorry, rest in peace, Dish.
So B, I'm going to bring you in on this, and I just want to mention before you kind of go in a little bit because I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say on this. I remember when all this kind of started happening back in 2020. One of the things that Charlie Ergen said was, barring an act of God, we'll be able to compete from day one. Well, he was lying. They obviously were not able to compete since day one. They weren't able to compete in day 365. They weren't able to compete in day 800. They had extensive losses for the better part of like 14 quarters, 15 quarters, 16 quarters, whatever it's been. It's been over 3 years. It's probably been closer to 4 years. And I don't want to say that T-Mobile didn't have a hand in their failures and their troubles and their struggles. But I definitely remember the 600 megahertz problems with the leasing and payments. I think T-Mobile kind of played them on the rates for the roaming. So I want to acknowledge that those things exist. But I think blaming other things, the externals, is lazy and cheap. I have to look at how they handle things with their authorized retailers and dealers. I have to look at the way that they got hacked and the way they handled that, the ransomware situation. I have to look at the way they weren't really competitive with their rates initially when it came to actual Boost Mobile. I think their advertising and their marketing was weak, and they started advertising late, like year 3. So what was happening for the first 2 years? It was clear they could only do one thing at a time. They had to build the network, then advertise. They couldn't do both at the same time. So they were up against it. I acknowledge it. There were a lot of different factors in play, but they clearly were the architects of their failure as well.
Everything you said is spot on, Sneed, but I would argue that they were set up to fail from the very beginning. I've maintained that this has T-Mobile written all over it. Boost was never supposed to be successful, and that was from go. When that merger took place, T-Mobile, Sprint, mostly T-Mobile, threw together some fourth competitor that was supposed to provide the same level of competition as what America had, become accustomed to, as far as having 4 different major carriers to choose from. That did not happen. From day one, T-Mobile obstructed just about everything Boost tried to do. And now, fast forward to today, they have Boost pretty much on their knees. And T-Mobile has a lot. T-Mobile has a lot to do with that. They are just as much at fault as Boost leadership is. And I think things are playing out exactly like T-Mobile wanted it to play out. They obviously didn't want a 4th carrier. They threw together a carrier like a pizza, and it was bad dough. It was never going to be successful. It was always going to be a bad pizza. They didn't have the cash flow. They didn't have the assets to build the network until, very, very, very far down the road. To their credit, they've actually built a pretty solid network, I understand, which is great. But they simply don't have the capital to compete with other companies who are spending, upwards of $20 billion just on their network, just on CapEx. So how are you supposed to compete with that? T-Mobile knew that. Yeah. T-Mobile's having a hard time competing themselves. They're spending $9 billion. Their competition is still spending almost double that. They're having a hard time competing too, and it's showing in the results. The network performance. It's only a matter of time before it shows through in growth. Year-over-year growth at T-Mobile is already reduced. So I say all that to say, getting back to Boost, unfortunately, I can't see them, escaping bankruptcy. I think by the end of the year, they'll be at the courts. It doesn't mean, to your credit, Sneed, it doesn't mean that they're going to be gone as a company. I agree. But at the same time, bankruptcy is knocking on their door. They just don't have the funds to continue to compete. They're selling their network at pennies on the dollar right now. It's like $60 for unlimited everything plus a free phone. I mean, where's the profitability now? I mean, you guys know where I stand when it comes to profitability and revenue accretion. It is very expensive to build a wireless network nationally in this country. Very expensive, very time consuming. And then when you built it, you got to keep it maintained. Most of your infrastructure is outside. That means it's exposed to the elements all the time. Radios go out, antennas go out, things happen. You got weather, you got birds and osprey. There's always something going on a network that you have to attend to. It is expensive. And that's why $60, man, where's the profitability? They just don't have the money to compete long-term at scale. And I mean, T-Mobile knew that when they consummated the deal and when they played hardball with them on Spectrum and all this other stuff, they were choking them out because they didn't want the competition. So I'm telling you, man, I've said this before and I've said it again. T-Mobile has made a lot of enemies in the industry, a lot of enemies. And eventually, their chickens will come home to roost. You heard it from me first. It's Friday, on whatever date it is. You heard it from me first.
SMT Nation, it is time for me to introduce to you Aura. Give you guys an incredible suite of cybersecurity protections to keep everything that you do online safe. Keeping you safe from identity theft, scams, online threats, including protections for your entire family. They offer pretty much a worry-free trial period. Obviously, the pricing is very competitive, starting at $12 per month. They've got one simple and easy app for you to use. They've got incredible features, $1 million in coverage, 24/7 expert fraud support, transparent pricing, the money-back guarantee at 60 days with a free trial, no strings attached. So with the odds of falling victim to an online crime being 1 in 4, this would change everything. Really should check them out. The financial fraud protection is worth its weight in gold. Help keep your kids protected within boundaries that you set forth for them. Proven to be the fastest, most reliable fraud alert system. And it's as simple as choosing your plan, simply setting up how you're enrolled, and then getting notified for all the things that it's monitoring. Start your free trial now. Use our link. It's down in the description, and it's also here on the screen, aura.com/Sneed. You guys can click the URL. It's hyperlinked down in the description. And again, it's up here on the screen, aura.com/Sneed. Protect yourself from all the digital threats that's out there in the world.